Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview Garry Hahn, the voice of NC State Wolfpack. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Hope you are.
I'm doing good. Can you talk about how you got started in sports broadcasting?
Well, the first 11 years of my life, I grew up in Western Pennsylvania. And at about age 6 or 7, I started to follow the Pittsburgh Pirates. And I listened to their games on radio a lot. And they had a great broadcasting team. In fact, a Hall of Fame broadcasting team. If you go to Cooperstown, both of these men are there. One was a wild man, Bob Prince, and the other was a straight man, Jim Woods. They made a terrific team. And just listening to them, they had so much fun on the air. I mean, you could just tell they were having such a great time. I thought, this is a job that would be tremendous to have, because who has that much fun at a job? My grandfather was the foreman in a blast furnace plant. My dad worked in the same plant. They weren't having all that much fun, and I thought this would be the greatest job in the world. And that kind of got me hooked. And by the time I was about 13 years old, I knew that I wanted to be a sports broadcaster on radio. I was hoping that someday I could be the voice of the Pittsburgh Pirates. That didn't work out. But I started to chart my path in school. I needed, obviously, to go to college to get the training that I needed. I wanted to go to a college where I could be on the air on a campus radio station and make mistakes, and wanted to be doing that as a freshman. So I found a college that had a radio and television department, Butler University in Indianapolis, Indiana. And I went there. And upon graduation, I started working at Channel 13 in Indianapolis just as a news intern. And another guy that was working there at the time was David Letterman, who later went on to great things in show business. But he was a booth announcer there. It was a union job. And David Letterman was the booth announcer and weekend weatherman. Well, he decided to start his career, and he went to another station in Indianapolis where he could start to do his comedy routines. And then he decided to pack up his car and go to Hollywood and start to get into the comedy clubs. Well, when he left Channel 13, I moved into his booth announcing position. And then a new general manager came. And that general manager said that, we just can't have you be the booth announcer. We need to have you do the weather too. And if you can't do the weather, you can't work here anymore. I'm going to give you a chance to audition. And if you pass, you'll stay here. And if you don't, if I don't like you, then you're out in the street. So I had my audition, and apparently he didn't like the way I did the weather, because he sent me packing. But I wasn't unemployed, but just for the weekend. I was unemployed for about 4 days, I think. And I got a job at another radio station in Indianapolis, WIRE. And I worked there as sort of a jack of all trades and master of none, and worked with Don Fisher, who's still the voice of the Indiana Hoosiers. And I helped him, not on his broadcast, but he did local sports in the morning. And I would cover things at night for him and bring him back sound cuts and things like that. So we became good friends, and I've known Don ever since. But while I worked at Wire, I had a part-time job where I worked at a radio station in Plainfield, Indiana, doing high school girls, boys, basketball, football. I think there were about 10 or 11 selected Butler University basketball away games. And this guy liked to do sports. And so I'd get off my regular job and then get in my 1969 Pontiac and drive all over central Indiana calling games. I think I called like 82 games one season for this radio station in Plainfield. And that's sort of where I got my style. I learned how to prepare for games. And a few years later, in 1977, I got a full-time sports job in Louisville, Kentucky. And a couple of years after that, started on the University of Louisville network as a color man. And then when the folks that owned that radio station decided to sell out, they gave me a few months to look for a job, which was very good because they didn't have to do that. And I landed in NBC Radio Network, now Westwood One in New York City, and worked there for a couple of years. But I wanted to do play-by-play. That was more of a studio job, but I needed a job at the time, and it was good money. And so I started looking, and I landed in Columbus, Ohio, at a station that was going to get the Ohio State football and basketball contract. And so I started there, and I was the voice of the Buckeyes for a few years. And from there, I went to the University of Alabama, worked on their network for a while. And then Wally Osley retired at NC State, and I came to State. So, and I've been here for, I think this season will be 31. So that's kind of a synopsis of my career.
That's an amazing career. Can you talk about your experience being the voice of the NC State?
Well, I've been here for 31 years. I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm not exactly sure what you want me to focus on, but you know,
what are some of your accomplishments?
I've pretty much seen it all for the last 31 years. It's been a blessing for me to be. Well, I'm not just to show up and do my job every game and try to give as descriptive a picture as I possibly can on radio. We try to give the most information and the most description, I think, of just about anybody, because all the games are on television. So you have to give your audience something that they can't get anywhere else. And we are privy to get into football and basketball practice. So we know the players very well, and we know what's going on. And so we have that inside information. Some of it we can use, and a lot of it we can't, but at least it gives us an idea about what's going on in the program. And then we try to give folks the best description and the most information that they possibly can, because a lot of them, before HD TV came along, would turn the sound down on the television and turn us up on radio. But with HD TV, there's a lot more processing now. And because of that, it's hard to sync up your television and your radio at the same time. But they're coming up with some technology now that can do that. So hopefully we'll get back to that. But you have to have a niche, and you have to come up with a way to draw people to your particular product. And that's what we've tried to do.
How was the experience like at Alabama and Ohio State as the voice of their program?
How is NC State any different?
Yes.
Well, I'm pretty much the full-time lead announcer at NC State, whereas at Alabama, I just did pre- and post-game for football, and I did color and substitute play-by-play for basketball. There I worked with Eli Gold, and Eli is a very good broadcaster and a very busy man, or he was at the time. He was doing NASCAR races on the weekend. He was doing a NASCAR show, I think, on Monday nights, and he was doing Alabama football and basketball. So there were some conflicts there. And when there would be a conflict, I would solo the basketball broadcast. And then at Louisville, I was basically the color man and the engineer and substitute play-by-play broadcaster when I was at Louisville. And I happened to hit that at a good time, because in the 1979-80 season, Louisville won the National Basketball Championship, and I was along for that ride and got to broadcast all those games with Jack Tennant, who's now gone to be with the Lord. But that was a tremendous experience, being with a team that won an NCAA championship.
Can you talk about your experience being the radio voice play-by-play for the Carolina Cougars?
It was the Carolina Cobras.
Yeah.
It was the World League of, what they call it? The World League of something football. I forget what it was, but it was a international league, and it was a spring football league. And the Carolina Cobras, unfortunately, were not one of the best teams in the league. In fact, they went 0 for the season. And they found ways to lose in the last couple of minutes several times. They had tremendous injury problems, but it was a great experience, because I got to go to Frankfurt, Germany. I got to go to London, England. I got to go to Montreal. I got to go to a lot of places that I might not have been able to visit through the World League, and getting to know the players and head coach Roman Gabriel and his staff. Doug Kay and some of the others was just a tremendous experience. A lot of long plane rides, but some exciting football that usually went into the fourth quarter before the Cobras would find a way to lose, or the other team would find a way to win.
Can you talk about your experience being the voiceover for the Raleigh Durham Seahawks?
Raleigh Durham Seahawks. Well, the Sky. I'm sorry. I just kind of messed up there. The Skyhawks were the World League of Professional Football team. So that's the one that I just talked about, being able to go to Europe. The Carolina Cobras, that was an indoor football league. And that was a great experience too, because it was a totally different game. The Carolina Cobras were coached by Doug Kay, who was on Roman Gabriel's staff with the World League team. And you have to be a tremendous athlete to play arena football. And that's what it was, because you're playing indoors. There are only a limited amount of players. You have to play both ways. You have to be a tremendous athlete. It's very, very physical. And you have to be able to score. Just about every time you have the football, you have to score. If you don't have much of a chance to win, because most of the scores are like 78 to 73, 68 to 62. If you kick a field goal, you're losing. So you pretty much have to score a touchdown just about every time you get the football. And there are different rules. There was always a man in motion, and he could go in forward motion, and he would get to the line of scrimmage just about the time the ball would be snapped. Or if he went over the line of scrimmage before that, there was a penalty. A lot of passing, very few running plays. And it was an exciting brand of football, and I had a great time doing it.
What advice would you give upcoming young broadcasters looking to get into the profession?
Well, the first thing is you got to learn how to compete. Because for a job like the one that I have right now, whenever it opens up, there's going to be probably 200 people that want that job. A lot of them aren't qualified, so they'll get sort of thrown away at the beginning. But there'll probably be at least 50 people that have a pretty equal chance for that job. And then they'll whittle it down to 25, and then they'll whittle it down to 10, then they'll whittle it down to 5, and then they'll come up with whoever they want. And so if you can't take rejection, and if you don't know how to compete, and if you don't have confidence in yourself, and if you're not very polished and ready and know how to prepare and know how to write and know how to speak, and if you don't have the best voice in the world, take voice lessons. This is a muscle. It can be developed, because I'm a testimony to that. If you'd have heard my voice in high school, you'd have said, there's no way this guy can ever be a broadcaster. But I wanted to do it worse than anything. And you have to have that. You have to have that desire. So you have to have the desire. You have to be able to work hard. You have to be able to get along with people, and you have to be able to take it when things don't go your way. I finished second one time for the Detroit Pistons NBA play-by-play job. I finished second for the Carolina Panthers NFL play-by-play job. I've been in the top 5 for a lot of jobs and not made it. But the Lord wanted me at NC State, and he opened up some incredible doors for me to come here. And this has been the greatest professional blessing of my life, not counting all those other jobs that we talked about. Being at NC State has been a tremendous experience. There are wonderful people there, and I've enjoyed just about every minute of it.
Where can my listeners find your next journey at once you end the state, once you retire from the voice of the Wolfpack?
Well, I haven't really thought about that, because I'm not ready to retire by any stretch of the imagination. I still have fun doing this. It brings me great joy, and I still haven't called the perfect game yet. I'm always, not quite perfect. So I'm still trying for the perfect play-by-play broadcast, and that's the challenge that's still out there, to try to be as excellent as I possibly can be. You're not going to reach perfection, but you can strive for excellence. So that's what I'm trying to do, and I still don't think I'm at that level. So there are still some horizons out there and some goals for me to reach.
Where can my listeners find you at on social media?
I'm not on it. I don't. I'm not a Facebook fan or a Twitter fan or anything like that. So they can get a hold of me through the university, NC State's athletic department.
Thank you again, Garry Hahn, for your interview, and best of luck with the rest of your NC State career. You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Facebook at Brandon Sports Talk, Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again for your interview.
You're welcome. Have a good day.